Joy, something happened so special on this week's Cyber AB Town Hall that I had to get producer Dustin to send the carrier pigeons that have been locked in their cages since Jacob went on vacation to you on the location to get you to come to your hotel room so that we could talk about it. There was some spectacular news that was shared. And I'm not talking about the 48 CFR rule going to OMB and OIRA for review. That's great news. It's wonderful. I'm actually talking about the other news that was distributed, and we're going to talk about all that news on this week's show.
Oh, no. I think I know what you're hinting about, Jason.
I can hardly contain my excitement. My facial expressions are through the roof.
Right?
I am absolutely fascinated by a few things. I like to monitor trends. I like to read tea leaves on the wall. And there's a lot of people that we work with that like to do that as well. And so one of my favorite pastimes, especially for this show that we get to do every month when we talk about the town hall, is I want to see what's happening in the ecosystem. And the first thing that we get, it gets me so excited, I'm like a little kid on Christmas, is the CEO gives us the update. What's going on with the program? What's going on with the ecosystem? How is it growing? How are we progressing? Are we kind of trending to the point where we feel as though we could fill the need when it comes time for CMMC to be actually fully live? Everything's in contracts. Everybody needs a certification. And we're not at this voluntary point. But while we're at this voluntary point, while we're waiting for 48 CFR to go final, there's some fascinating news that we got on this month's town hall. And it's trending upwards that the program is delivering. And what I'm saying is did you know, Joy, I know that you got to see some of the town hall. I think you got to see all the town hall. We got to talk about a lot of it. Did you know that as of this week's town hall, 258 completed CMMC level 2 certifications, 3 CMMC final statuses?
It's remarkable. I'm so proud of us, of the whole ecosystem. I'm so proud.
We versus us, right? Like that whole, it's a team thing, right? And the team is kind of stepping up to the challenge. And what I mean by that is when we had this show last month, Joy, there was 168 total complete. Still not a lot, a very small percentage in the overall number of the companies which are going to need to be assessed in the CMMC program. But it was at that point in time, the most in a month that we've seen produced, the most final CMMC certifications have come across. And that was 60 from the previous 5 months combined, right? They multiplied the number by 3x in the month of June. And then they got to July and they were like, what can we do? And they increased production again. And why that's so promising, why this is such spectacular news, why I'm going absolutely nuts here and I can't control the tone of my voice or the speed and pitch and inflection of everything that I say, right? Why that's spectacular is because it's an upward trend of the program delivering and the ecosystem functioning. You see the trend in the amount of assessments being completed, the amount of certified professionals that are trying to get into roles, that are being certified in the roles, the amount of assessors, the amount of lead assessors, the amount of C3PAO organizations that conduct the assessments are constantly growing. And not only that, as they grow, the production of final CMMC certifications it continues to grow in incremental amounts. And I think that is the most promising news that came out. And many will disagree, but the most promising news that came out of this month's town hall. Would you agree?
I agree, but also, I have to say props to the OSCs that are stepping up and saying, I'm ready. I want to do this. They're definitely in that forward-leaning curve. And just to see the amount of them is really spectacular. One thing I'd love to understand, and I think that it might be something you and I can tackle, is we have 23 some odd ESPs that are not CSPs on the MSP Collective website, having passed their own CMMC Level 2 assessment. I wonder how many of those 258 are leveraging a service provider, and how many of those service providers are in our collective and went through it themselves, and now they're just like booking these through because they really know their stuff and really helping those clients, get across the finish line. That's a number I'd like to see.
Yeah, there are quite a few numbers that I would definitely like to see coming out of it. That is definitely one I would like to see if there is maybe a higher success percentage for the organizations that are or not leveraging an external service provider. And then some of the other numbers that people have constantly clamoring about, like basically saying, because they don't exist, this program's not legit. Because they don't exist, they're not reporting it. They want all sunshines and bows. One of the numbers that we got this month that kind of makes me excited, makes me sad at the same time, right? You don't want to see anybody fail, but they started telling us how many failed assessments have been reported. Now, this is different from the term false starts, right? False starts is when a CMMC assessment doesn't get out of phase one, right? You send the documentation over to your C3PAO and they're like, this quite isn't up to snuff. You're not going to pass an assessment. We don't want to proceed. That's technically reported, but that's not a failed assessment from my understanding. Anybody can correct me in the audience. Failed assessments are when you get past that phase and they're evaluating your implementations and they're just like, this isn't good enough. You are not going to get your CMMC certification. You do not pass go. You do not collect $200. You cannot bid on a contract until you fix all of this, right? Also, new assessment, right? You have to pay for, I would assume, a full assessment again. And we finally got a reporting. Unfortunately, 8 companies this month did not pass their CMMC certification, whether they were in some sort of a limbo, trying to fix some things in that 90-day reevaluation period, whatever it may be, contesting it. We now have numbers on that. And those are numbers that we need to see because, again, I think that it would have been very negatively received if we went through the first year of this program and we just didn't hear anything about any organization not passing the bar, right? Everybody just gets 100. Everybody just gets 100. Well, realistically, if you pass it, the only way you pass is if you get 100. And in the beginning, I think the voluntary organizations that are coming out before it's required have put a lot more effort into this. And I think there's less likelihood that you're going to see this organization just try to wing it because now they're up against the deadline and they have no other choice, right? Organizations right now have a choice. They're volunteering to do it. They're volunteering in droves, apparently. And the ecosystem that was stood up to deliver it is performing up to snuff. So, and I just wanted to point out, too, that 77 authorized C3PAOs, 90 assessments conducted, technically completed this month. Another 87 are kind of in the hopper, currently in progress, weren't finalized as of the town hall. So that's 170. I'm not going to try to do math again, but 2.5 times the amount of C3PO, so maybe 2.5 or something like that is what they're doing. And I think that, obviously a larger capacity, give or take some of the C3POs that which are not performing assessments whatsoever. I just feel like the numbers are trending to the point where this is growing at the rate in which it can be successful when it needs to be fully functioning, fully flourishing and successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still a great time for CCPs and CCAs to say, I want to throw my hat in the ring and get out there and start, I think that a lot of people feel like there's so many assessors already out there. But the classes are packing out. The CCP and CCA classes are packing out. And this is just a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of OSCs that need to get their certifications. So these C3PAOs are going to keep growing. The number of C3PAOs and the number of teams that they can run concurrently is going to continue to grow.
I just want to throw this out there. You said C3PAOs want to throw their hat in the bucket. You know how many hats are in the bucket right now?
How many?
522.
Wow. That's not how many are authorized, though, right?
No, there are 77 hats in the bucket that they've already thrown their hat in the bucket.
77 are authorized.
Yep. And so 77 got authorized, 522 applicants. 16 have passed their assessment. There's 16 of the 522 applications. Those organizations have passed their assessment. 23 of those are waiting DIBCAC assessments. We have another 50, potentially more, that are just waiting on assessment and the administrative stuff on the back end. But then 522 are like, hey, I want to play too. And now we have to get there. And we got some information that some of those may be international organizations that are trying to, tether into the program, with mentions of like Japan and South Korea and stuff like that. So it's good to see that not only is it flourishing, but it's flourishing internationally as it's intended to, as the DIB functions internationally. It's not just obviously US based. So moving on, Joy, to something, and I'm going to ask you a question because we talked about it the last time we talked about it in the town hall, and we tried to offer an explanation. I don't know if technically we both agree with the official explanation that's being given, but it's the official explanation. And once again, sometimes you just got to deal with the hand that you're dealt, right? But this 10-day reevaluation period when it comes to assessments. Now you've taught many CCA, many CCP classes, and all of those cover the cap, and this has technically covered the cap. And I just want to shut up, and I think everybody in the audience wants me to shut up, and just let you talk for a minute. And I want you to talk and tell us about this 10-day reevaluation period, what technically it means, just the breakdown of it, and then where exactly is the confusion coming, or if there's any clarity in which you can provide.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, one of the things you mentioned is that in all the CCP and CCA classes I've taught, that I teach the cap, but this is information that isn't in the version of the cap that's taught in those classes. This is the newest version of the cap. And really, it's a very confusing thing. I had a panel at CS2 where we talked through this specific thing. When
there's a gap in my cap.
The gap in the cap. I'm like, one of the gaps we see in the cap is that it's got this 10-day reevaluation period. How is that being interpreted by the C3PAOs? Well, the interpretation is now something that the Cyber AB is trying to address, and they're repeating it multiple times. They feel it's really important for folks to understand. But I have to say, it's pretty weak in examples for how they want it to be applied. What the understanding is that the control has to have already been implemented, but the way in which you're showing that it was implemented already, you may not have what you need available to you at the time of the assessment to prove the implementation. So before that final report is filed, and after the assessor says, okay, that's the last of our evidence gathering, we're done with our schedule that we had outlined, there's 10 days that you have where you can suddenly find that missing evidence that you knew that you had. You knew you had that evidence. Now, the example they gave is that somebody's gone on vacation or is otherwise just all of a sudden unavailable. Hopefully, when you scheduled the assessment, you didn't have one of your key stakeholders say, oh, by the way, I'm taking vacation midway during the week. And so hopefully you plan better than that, because these are very expensive and resource intensive. But the example that they gave is a key person who was going to give testimony and be interviewed for how it is that they actually have implemented this, was not available at the time. Within that 10-day window, that person suddenly available, the assessor circles back, right? Another example they gave is that you found a document.
So all right. So,
I'm sorry.
I'm going to let you listen. All right. In my best Kanye, Taylor, I'm going to let you finish it all. But
so you had this magical document that was either a policy or a procedure, most likely, that you just couldn't get your hands on during the assessment. But voila, within 10 days, the document that contains exactly what you needed, that has the appropriate date on it, and was signed by the appropriate official, is now available. So the clouds have parted. The assessor comes in and says, well, look at that. It was pre-existing, obviously, from the date on it. You knew that you had it, and we're going to go ahead and count that in as part of the 10-day reevaluation.
All right. So
go ahead, Kanye.
So there's part of it that I agree with. The availability of the assessment, maybe it's somebody that you didn't prepare well enough, or you did not know that they played such a vital role and needed to be interviewed, and that person possesses specific knowledge. With that being said, there are some processes when I still think that this shouldn't be allowable, because realistically, if it's a process execution thing, there should be a backup that has been designated through governance or something like that to fill in stead of that person, right? So if they're not there, the show must go on. Because unfortunately, what if that person gets terminally ill? What if something happens or something like that? Show still must go on. I know that's very morbid, but it's the realistic nature of why governance exists first and foremost. When it comes to documents, that's when I hit a pause. I think that if we were looking for magicians that could, suddenly pull out of the hat the document that's needed for us to pass this control in 10 days, I think that there's a lot of OSCs out there that could find that magician within that 10 days for certain documents. Some of those documents I don't think should be accepted. If I can't find my access control policy at the time of assessment, I'm probably not following it.
Well,
You know
that's
what I
the
mean?
thing that I think the OSCs have to be really careful about, because if it's something like an access control policy, it's going to impact way more than one control. And one of the caveats to this is it doesn't qualify if that control not being implemented while you're finding your paperwork doesn't impact the other controls, any of the other controls, right? So you're down to, oh, I did the whole access control domain except for 3.1.22 for publicly posted information. And it's this one person who always reviews everything that needs to be interviewed. Now that's one way of okay, all right. So, and God forbid, maybe something happened and they're in the
Or like
hospital. You never know, right?
they're
You never
considering
know.
a document like a screen grab of maybe a SaaS product that you utilize that is secure. It may have a FedRAMP or something like that, but you need a screen
It's
grab
not
that you
limited to
configured in a
just
certain way.
documents. Yeah, I mean, it could be a person, but it could be a document. I just think I'm like,
Maybe we're conditioned just
I
to think the absolute
people
positive
to
or the
follow
absolute
the
negative in
rules.
all the situations, right? That you're definitely going to use this for good. You can't use your superpowers for the real reason. This 10-day window is definitely going to be used for bad. Everybody's going to
Yeah.
use it for good.
Well,
all right.
I don't even know if it's for bad. Honestly, if it's not impacting any other controls, I'm just saying.
But if
Who am I
you're
to
inventing a document at the time of
learn that?
assessment that says that you've been doing something for 6 months and you really hasn't been doing it, I think that that's using it for bad. That's IMHO, but it is what it is.
All right.
The very, I think somebody that we've gotten to interact with on numerous times within the ecosystem, Michael Gruden, joined the town hall this week, or this month's town hall, to just talk about 48 CFR and going final. Did a great job of covering a lot of the points that we could see it, when we could see it, the predictions as to when we can see it, the significance that the rule holds, and basically, I'm not going to go through the things that Michael said, because we had the last week's episode of the Summit Up podcast was basically the same forecasts and perspectives, and kind of we share the same thing, because I think one of the things that it did indicate is now the industry, for the most part, is aligned with how they feel about where this is going, when it may come out, and the fact that realistically, and this is my personal perspective, and none of the public responses that I've seen from anybody in authoritative positions or any industry, experts, leaders, anything like that, lead me to believe anything other than the fact that this is moving fast, and it may move faster than people expect.
Agreed.
There's
Agreed.
nothing.
The only thing that I've seen is a lot of inaccurate information being posted with, it goes into contracts effective October 1st. You've seen that as many times as I have.
Yeah.
It's almost, my favorite game. I have a LinkedIn game I play, Jason. I'm going to share it with you now.
Oh, I like games.
It's like the Where's Waldo of LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
When I find a post with misinformation that Wayne Boleen hasn't already commented on, to correct that misinformation. He is on it. He's the sheriff of LinkedIn.
Yes.
The CMMC sheriff of LinkedIn.
So he is, if I'm not mistaken, the chair of the CMMC Ethics Council too. So he is the person that's responsible for when we file complaints like that. I think that he is or his role in the board. I don't necessarily know.
I don't know.
I hope that he watches the show. Wayne, if you're out there, just throw it in the chat exactly what your title is.
I'm not gonna lie.
I like a person that likes to keep people in line, because we know that there's a lot of stuff that is out of line right now within LinkedIn. You said you like to play this fair game. One of the things they covered in ethics was a little bit of marketing, and we know in the LinkedIn land right now, There is a lot of questionable marketing, and that marketing, October 1st marketing you mentioned, what it appears is that there's a lot of people that have upgraded to the CMMC marketing model of ChatGPT. I don't know what version that is. Maybe it's 5 levels, maybe it's 3.0. Not 100% sure, but realistically, what I can classify as is when I see bad things, what the game I like to play now is I like to go into ChatGPT and try to type whatever point they're trying to get across and say, give me the things here, and then see the information that's busted out there. And it's usually, verbatim that stuff. And it's kind of funny because, we share between us sometimes some of the examples in which we see, and then the AB this month shared an example which they saw. And I'm only going to give this the time of day because it's laughable. It's like, you created like your own. All right, the ethics. Let's set the stage real quick. The ethics portion of this month's town hall covered basically you have a responsibility as a member of the ecosystem. You can't misrepresent yourself or what you do or what you're capable of doing or what you are, or what you have, anything. Just be you. Why? You have the choice to be anything you want to be in the world. Why be anything other than yourself, right? So why would you want to be something that realistically doesn't exist, like CMMC Level 1 certified, which is what this company, you'll see it on the screen, has designated themselves to be.
Level 1 certification?
First of all,
I didn't know that existed.
Congratulations. That's like saying as an adult, I don't even know, as an adult, I can... What is so menial of an accomplishment that you could say I've done this, right, in an industry where, okay, like I would probably go downstairs and get my 8-year-old, and she could probably explain how to get CMMC Level 1 certified. Now that may be a gift and a curse because I'm her dad and I may talk about it a little too much, but it's not necessarily something, and it's definitely not something that's official, that has its own badge and it warrants your representation there. I just be who you are. Right now, false marketing floating around is realistically like the jellyfish that are taking over the Atlantic Ocean. You just see them, you see them. It's a business opportunity, and ChatGPT is their friend, and we're seeing it because all of the particular bad egg marketing things that we're seeing have the same terminology in them. Funny. Wonder where that came from. Yeah. I want to, before we get out here, we got 2 major things to cover. One, I just want to mix it up a little bit, maybe try something new. We get to cover the town halls every month, and they talk about stuff, and there's stuff that excites us. And so I wanted to see maybe if, and this is wishful thinking, Matt Travis, if you're out there, or John Haney, or anybody else that works for the Cyber AB that watches the show religiously, like I hope that you do, maybe if we had a little wish list of things that maybe we're hearing, or topics that we're hearing within the industry, that we could put out in the universe, bring them to fruition, right? We want to manifest these things on next month's town hall. These are things that y'all need to talk about. So Joy, I'm going to ask you, if there is one thing that you could manifest on the agenda for next month's town hall, I see you licking your lips right now. What would it be? What should they talk about next month from the mind of the great JBB?
I'm so glad you asked that, Jason. I'm glad that they are including ethics here and there in the Cyber AB town halls, but I've personally sent in a couple of questions myself to the ethics email, right? Asking specific questions like, what qualifies as a conflict of interest in this scenario? Is that a conflict of interest? How do you think we should handle it? They don't have to, put people's names out there, just like the website example that we just did. But I'd love to see them answering 1 or 2 ethics emails every month on the Cyber AB town hall for people's specific questions and examples. That's what I would like to see. And even better, bonus points if Wayne is involved in that, if he's the chair of that, if he's the one that's giving us the answers. I'd like to see that.
I need to get you a Wayne t-shirt.
Santa gave us.
For me, I think the largest amount of questions that I'm answering at the present time has to deal with significant change. Obviously, on a town hall, they went through and they talked about things that may trigger a reassessment, and everybody's like, oh my God, significant change, that's the key word. And then everybody's like, significant change, what does that mean? And everybody's like, it's provocative, nobody knows what it means, it just gets everybody going. Now, there are people that, based on their different experiences within different industries and verticals of cybersecurity, the significant change means different. There's different documents that the DoD does abide by normally in other scenarios where significant change is clearly defined. Just the problem with CMMC, and the thing that we need to focus on is that when it comes to CMMC, there needs to be CMMC specific definitions when there are things called out within the rules, within regulations, within any of the assessment guides, whatever it is. And that way, because even in public, when we are trying to address the conversation of significant change, the perspectives or interpretations that we get from people that are lead CCAs or people that are CCAs, so they're people that are certified, are different and varying perspectives that mean totally different and varying outcomes for OSAs. And that can potentially be a problem in the market. So the quicker that we get in front of it, get ahead of it and make sure that it doesn't spiral out of control, I think that would be the best part.
All right.
Last thing before we get out of here, Joy, we are going to be in the lab, so to say. Last time I was in a lab was chemistry in 11th grade, and my teacher, Mr. Chase, told me, get out. I didn't know that if you pulled the wand that the eye rinse thing would turn on. I just had to. I was a curious kid. But we're going to be in the lab, and we're going to be in the lab with Logan from Chieri Solutions. And I am particularly interested at Secure the Dib Virtual Summit in August. The link is in the tabs to register, okay? And we are going to be picking his brain about assessment. Ready, set, assessment. What's going on? What are some of the things for me that Logan wishes that he could tell those OSAs, OSCs that sit across from him and maybe fail the assessment or maybe get that false start, that he could get it if he could reach the little OSA that could when they're getting started in their journey and give him a couple pointers and advice from the C3PO's perspective when he's normally got his mouth tied and he can't talk about things. And I'm going to try to pick that much out of him for us while we're in the lab. What about you?
Yeah, same. Logan's done a lot of assessments and he's got great perspective. And I suspect what he's going to focus on is that pre-assessment phase, the amount of people that have failed to actually get to the starting blocks and what those commonalities are. That's what I'm really interested to hear. But then also, as it's moving along, what are some of the things that he's seeing in like some of the harder domains where people have struggled, or where he's actually ended up seeing a lot less evidence than he would have expected to have ready, things like that. Yeah,
that, and then are there struggles that are specific to maybe the more technical heavy organizations trying to do the administrative things, the more administrative focused organizations trying their hand at technical stuff? Like, is he seeing like a trend in some of the difficulties that maybe these organizations are having when they're coming across the table from them? It's going to be a great event, jam-packed agenda from the Summit 7 Labs. Make sure you register. The link is in the comments, like I said. And subscribe, tell all your friends, and we'll see you next week, folks.
Thanks.